It's gonna blow up. Those are the words NASA engineer Bob Eblen spoke to his wife the night before the Challenger space shuttle exploded, killing all 7 astronauts on board. Eblen and a colleague tried but failed to stop the launch. Shortly thereafter, Mr. Eblen retired and battled depression for the next 30 years. Forgiveness, but more specifically, communicating forgiveness, is what helped Mr. Eblen find peace in 2016, just after the 30th anniversary of the explosion. National Public Radio aired his interviews, wrote stories, and aired listeners' responses. When Mr. Eblen heard forgiving messages from members of the public, a former boss, and a NASA official, his family says his spirit finally lifted. When people hear that I research forgiveness, they often ask, forgiveness? How do you do it? How do you forgive? The simple answer is, you communicate it. Now, I often get blank or even like sideways stares when I say that, but a couple of decades of research by communication scholars has consistently found that communicating forgiveness openly is associated with positive relational outcomes, even when the discussions are emotional and difficult. Now, that being said, most of us don't easily launch into forgiveness discussions. Usually we need a little encouragement. Supportive environments also help. A community where we can learn and talk about forgiveness. A community that practices forgiveness. With practicing forgiveness in mind, and with the help of over 150 community donors, forgiveness scholars and veteran scholars, Vince Waldron, Doug Kelly, and I formed a partnership for which I am very grateful. Together, we created the Forgiveness Tree Project. We combined forgiveness education with a community art project. After a forgiveness discussion, members of the community write forgiving messages on leaves, such as the ones you see here. During a ceremony, members of the community take those leaves and put them on a tree. The result is a forgiveness tree, which serves as an enduring symbol of practicing forgiveness. We encourage each community to create a tree that is a unique reflection of them. Here's another example. The parts of the tree, the leaves, the branches, the trunk, and the roots, help organize our discussions. The leaves symbolize communication. For example, how we apologize, how we say, "I'm so sorry I hurt you." Or perhaps harder, how we ask, "Why wasn't I good enough?" Adults often pass on our misunderstandings and vulnerabilities about forgiveness when guiding kids. A school-aged young man shared with us that a playground aide forced him to apologize to a fellow student for calling him troll nose. Right? He told us, "I'm not ready. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to apologize." So this is how his apology came out. "Sorry, troll nose." Right? We have worked with hundreds of adults too, but working with kids and hearing what they were learning about forgiveness from adults really drove home for us how much forgiveness education is needed. Our curriculum teaches kids and adults about how important their forgiveness communication is. For example, listen to this contrast. If I said, "Listen, jerk," that's totally different than if I said to someone, "I'm hurting. I don't know if I can keep living like this." Our curriculum emphasizes the growth and renewal we believe is present each time we communicate, and every time we do, sends a message through the branches, down the trunk, all the way to the roots. The branches symbolize our relationships, family, friends, coworkers, teammates, neighbors, even our foes. Some branches are so tightly connected to the tree that losing them would drastically alter the tree. But of course, sometimes branches need a little pruning to preserve the overall health of the tree. The friend who is disrespectful may get left behind. The coworker who doesn't pull his or her weight gets omitted from the next project. In some cases, it may be wise to hire a professional, an arborist for a tree, a therapist, counselor, or support group for us. Our healthy relationships, ones where we can communicate forgiveness and preserve our sense of intimacy, trust, and justice, are relationships that help us become stronger ourselves, which leads us to the trunk symbolism, the strong and healthy self. The stronger and healthier the trunk is, the more it can support a variety of relationships. Perhaps even provide shelter for others. I am especially drawn to interesting trunks and people who have weathered unusual and perhaps even harsh circumstances, but have proven resilient. Considerable research has shown that forgiveness can help people move beyond the inevitable hardships we will all face. In addition to our grit, the trunk is a reflection of the last part of the tree that we include in our curriculum, the roots. The roots represent our values. Our root rules may come from our upbringing, our family. Our values may be rooted in the literature we read, the movies we enjoy, or the stories we share with friends and family. Some learn to value forgiveness from their religious communities and texts. The root system from this tree is from an adult detention center. Notice the words abandonment and poverty in the roots. Thankfully, our root system continues to grow and mature throughout our lifetime. When violations to our root rules occur, that's what incites forgiveness. When it does, when something goes wrong, we need to talk it out. This is how we talk back. This is also why our communication continues to feed the root system. And finally, while the roots sit below the surface, usually invisible to us, their health is certainly reflected in the trunk, the branches, and the leaves. Since 2013, 18 communities have invited us to conduct forgiveness tree ceremonies, and over 1,500 people have participated. We hope you'll consider planting a forgiveness tree in your community. Let's remember why. Humans' capacity for destruction is well documented. The subsequent suffering is stunning. Having witnessed people close to me bear tragic, shocking loss, I cannot imagine the grief those 7 astronauts' families have endured for over 30 years now. His family says that's what haunted Bob Eblen: guilt, grief, shame. So he courageously communicated his complicated feelings, publicly no less. But the public's response to Mr. Eblen reveals a transformation that I hope many of you also recognize: tenderness, mercy, encouragement to lay down the burden. NPR created a forgiveness community, not a perfect one. Perfect communication is as elusive as are perfect people. But practicing forgiveness communication, now there's a notion I hope will take off.